First of all, thanks for not applauding my last stanza because I'll tell you, I'd rather have your respect for an honest stanza than a bunch of applause because I said something that might not be true. But can I have your question again? Uh,
Well, the question is that we have results in front of us. I'm new to Rhode Island, but it hasn't taken me very long to see what kind of waste there is in this state, and it's very scary. It's at the top of everyone's minds, and it's a
so,
fact.
so in the
And
state,
it,
this is the focus is waste in the state.
it's waste in the state. It's the
Okay.
lights being on when nobody's in the building.
Okay.
It's the government workers who are out on disability for decades, and it's happening. And
Okay. Well, as a congressman from the second congressional district, waste in the state. What can a congressman in Washington do about waste in the state? The first thing you can do is help the governor of Rhode Island determine the cost of illegal immigration. Number one. The numbers we have, Ryle has produced some numbers, but they're not an official organization. So if you use those Ryles, people are going to think that you're prejudiced, you're biased, you're stirring up communities. We don't want to offend people. We want official numbers. But I found out on the web that Minnesota did a study on the cost of illegal immigration, and they found out they don't have the data. And guess what? It's a mystery in Rhode Island too, according to the Projo. It's a mystery in Rhode Island what the costs of illegal immigration are. We know it costs money in public assistance. We know it, which is 46% of the state budget, by the way. We know it costs money in prisons, and we know it costs in the local schools. So I think I'd like to bring some federal grant money back to the states so they can study the cost of illegal immigration. Then we can have a calm, reasonable discussion of what those costs are, and get the communities together to agree on how to limit the cost of illegal immigration. I think it's a huge number, and I think that's the first thing a congressman can do for the governor of the state of Rhode Island. When I watch C-SPAN and I see the House of Representatives in session, and not having had a chance to do that job, but seeing how much like a courtroom it really is, and wanting so much to do that job, the last thing I want to do is think about cutting my term short. And I want to tell you something else. My vision of healthcare reform is that the United States of America will have the greatest, most affordable, best access, most accessible healthcare system in the world. And we're going to do it with uniform state laws so we can have competition across state lines, real choice of insurance policies. So we don't just have four choices of companies selling the same thing a few bucks apart. We have actual choices of policies, different tiers for different phases of your life. And that's going to take, given them some need to roll back whatever they do, that's going to take more than 2 years. That's going to take about 3 years, for 3 to 4 years for uniform state laws, but it has to begin. It's going to take longer to do that. If we can have the greatest health care system in the world, we can. You have to have some consumer regulation. You have to have more affordable, comprehensive policies, and you have to have Medicare still, because when people stop working and they're not earning much money, Medicare is their last resort. They need it. So we have to look at healthcare in a very mature way, and we have to recognize a need for reform, and we have to recognize it's going to take a little time. Term limits are very important with executive power, because that is the most applied power, direct power on the people, the enforcement of law. Term limits are very important with the executive branch. I don't think they're as important with the legislative branch, and I think that's been what historically we have done. I agree 100% that American America has to guard its sovereignty. I studied the law of the sea in a class taught at University of Rhode Island back when I was in college, and I remember that it was essentially a wealth redistribution mechanism. The United States bears some sort of guilt for being a developed nation, so we therefore have to go do the mining, provide the technology, and then we have to transfer it to the rest of the world. And that is coming up again in the Copenhagen Treaty, rather. The idea that we have to pay a tax because we're already developed. This stuff is a lot of junk. You know, we don't. we do not have to pay reparations for being a developed world. What we have to do is extend our model. In 1776, we became independent from England, and then we had the Articles of Confederation, and it was kind of a weak association of states. It didn't work out, and our framers got together and came up with this wonderful model of federalism, and and freedom. And I do believe that that is going to spread across the world one day. I know that sounds naive, but I do believe that our way, the American way, is actually an ingenious way of governing not only our country, but one day we will have associations where we do cooperate. But right now, what's going on? But that doesn't mean ceding sovereignty. Not by a long shot. By a long shot. Mark's right. The idea of giving these bodies independent money where they can perhaps develop a military, start enforcing laws. That's not what we're going to do. But do I believe in pulling out of the United Nations? Absolutely not. People, my friends, after the First World War, the United States withdrew. We refused to enter the League of Nations. And what happened in Europe? What happened in Europe? We ended up with this huge, giant, expensive war that threatened freedom throughout the entire world. We're not going to pull our head back in the sand. We're the United States of America. We're the greatest country that has ever been on the face of this earth. And I'm not going to go back into some sort of, we're going to retreat into ourselves. I am not afraid of the world. Thank you. I'm listening on the Federal Reserve thing. It's clear that people have good reason to be very concerned. The Federal Reserve is literally adding digits to the left of bank account numbers, just creating money digitally. We used to say they're printing money. They're not printing money. They're just creating numbers, just adding numbers. It is a frightening situation, and I'm very concerned about the devaluation of our currency. I'm worried. What will happen when the economy begins to rebound? The people who are getting paid monopoly money for oil might decide that they want a lot more. And guess what happens to our recovery? Done. Done. So it is the most critical issue in our future that we must somehow stop the printing of money. Studying the Fed, I'm listening. Can I say I'm an expert to say shut it down? No, because the fact is the Fed was a response to a number of financial panics in our history. We used to go through boom and bust all the time. So the Fed is a reaction to other problems from other ages. I'm not studied enough, but I'm listening. The major issue we do have to be concerned with, number one, is though we have to get a control on the dollar. If the dollar is weak, it helps manufacturing, selling overseas, sure, but it raises energy prices, and that could really kill our recovery. And if they get off the dollar as a standard in oil and whatnot, we're going to start facing a lot of costs. So right now we've had it on the cheap. Everyone wants to lend the United States money. Everybody likes the dollar. But what happens if the world doesn't like the dollar? We have to really be concerned. And I'm listening on the Fed, but I can't guarantee what I'd do. I'm sorry. Thank you.